This is what I want to talk to you about is like getting like you talking to me how PETA started with guys around a table. I want to like make this video kind of a calling to the vegan community and see who wants to get involved with something that we can get together on.
Well, why even talk about Durian Rider at all or something? One of my answers is because my YouTube channel is about my life. And this stuff is part of my life. And also, you know, I'm now living in China. This stuff is part of my life too. So, you know,
Absolutely. And I think personally I'm just inspired with this whole idea of like, you know, activism and being political about it, and like, because from what I'm not like, I stay away from the government stuff and voting and political, and like it's all, I think it's all garbage right now. But I think what I can see that is like, especially with the Trump thing going on, everything that it's popularity contest. So I think that with the YouTube, it's the kind of the greatest part of what we have is the popularity. So if we can just organize, and I feel like this is what I want to talk to you about is like getting like you talking to me how PETA started with guys around a table. I want to like make this video kind of a calling to the vegan community and see who wants to get involved with something that we can get together on, because I think and I'm talking, it needs to be the right kind of people, ones that we need the politicians to be, the ones with integrity, transparency, responsibility, honesty. They show up, and I'll say right now, if there's any vegan channel out there that fits those requirements, let me know in the chat, and let's just try and get something going, because we can do this. We got the popularity, and we have to do this with political change. We can't. It's great to inspire guys, and I know you're all doing a great job with inspiring, but now we need to take that a step further and say, what are we going to do once we're inspired?
I mean, all of us are doing great, doing our own thing, but let's start organizing and put our talents together and see what we can create and see what we can actually make make changes today, tomorrow, next week, next year.
What PETA did around the table to form their group, this is the table. The online community is the table, and I think it was in Cowspiracy, they showed how PETA isn't even addressing the environmental damage of animal agriculture. So we can tell right there, they've been bought out. They're not addressing the issues, and we need some kind of establishment, because millions of dollars are going towards this company that isn't addressing the real problem, and that's a problem right there. So I'm thinking if we can instill the trust from people to we have our word.
Look, so obviously I agree with you guys 100% that, and the sentiment I share. The only thing I'd emphasize is, don't be misled by this idea of unity. We can talk about veganism as one movement, as one thing, or as one table, but there are also going to be little tables within that. And that's so important because it's more rewarding for the people themselves who are involved. So gay rights in Toronto, you can talk about gay rights as one issue, as one thing. But in reality, there were many small groups. There were groups that were just for lesbians. There were groups that were just for transgender people. As I recall, there were several different groups for transgender people who defined themselves in different ways. Now, of course, they cooperated on some issues. There's a big picture of gay rights, but there's also this quality of having small, specific groups. So something people hate me for, because they're idiots, I talked openly in my most recent video about having vegans who are involved in the medical sciences get involved, get organized. So, you know, vegans who are scientists who may actually be involved with vivisection, with torturing animals to death, but they're still vegan, they want to change it. Now, again, I don't know how you can be so stupid as to misunderstand what I'm saying. These are people who want to abolish vivisection. These are vegans. They want to kill as few animals as possible, or zero. In the long term, they want to see the sciences change and improve. But to recognize, wow, if we could have a conference, if we can organize those people who have that special interest and have that detailed knowledge and that engagement and experience, that's something really powerful. So that's a small table. And there are going to be a bunch of small tables like that within the big table. I mean, you mentioned in Cowspiracy the issue of river pollution. You know, I'm not an expert on that. I have actually done some research on river pollution. I know I've done research on too many things, but I have done a little bit. But you know, if you get together a conference which is just vegans who care about water pollution and rivers, that can be really powerful too, right? So yes, there's a big picture and there's a big table, but there's also these small tables. And the reality is, look, when we were talking before about the drama, the reason why vegans on YouTube are so crazy and so despicable is money, sex, fame. That's what's motivating them. But when you get that small table, instead, what's motivating people is the cooperation itself. Because if you're an expert on river water pollution, the most rewarding thing in the world is for you to spend time with other experts, other people who care about that, who know about that, who are passionate about that, and especially if they're also vegan. That's so you may get no money out of it. You know, you may never make a dime out of that form of activism, but that's deeply rewarding. And the same for the scientists. And again, the same for the transgender people who form a transgender political group. Part of it is the reward of what that activism does for you as a person and for that group of people as a group. So that's really important to remember. And you're going to see much better behavior out of people once you have those organizations, because they're not on here as thirsty fame whores. They're not on here chasing thumbs up. They're not on here chasing fame, money, or sex.
So I mean, like what you just said there, like okay, so like
what's that? So, Eisel, it really sounds like you understand the structure of change nowadays, because you understand this gay rights thing, and you're talking about the small tables. They broke it down in different sections, and they really had to break it down and really get organized, as you say. So, would you be interested in trying to set up a structure like this so we could govern some real change?
The short answer is yes, I am. I have an 8-minute video on my channel that's just called On Community. So, I mean, many of my videos are long. You guys know I have videos that are over an hour. But there's an 8-minute video called On Community, and that really sets out who I am, what I aspire to do, and the type of foundation I want to form. The other reality is right now I'm basically homeless. You know, I'm living in China. Currently, I'm in a dorm room provided by the school. I live in the school I'm studying at. Then I'm going to rent my own apartment. So, I mean, within the near future, really, poverty and homelessness. Like, I'm sorry if that sounds ridiculous, but I am in a situation where I can't play that role because I have no home. Now, I mean, if and again, a place like Victoria, BC is also not my home. I was there to go to university, but I'm not. So I lack the very basic foundation you need of having a home and preferably having an office, you know, those really simple things to play that role. But in the future, in the next several years, I could play that role, and I want to, in terms of actually forming foundations. And in a sense, what you want is an association of foundations, so that you have different specialized groups, but you also have mandates and mission statements that unite them. And to give one brief example, look, I told you, I talk to all kinds of vegans. I talk to Christians, I talk to atheists, I talk to Hindus, I talk to anarchists, I talk to left-wingers, I talk to...
Even crazy guys
Right. Poker players. The worst vegans in the world are poker players. I even talk to you. No. So I do talk to everybody, but I think, you know, one of the other advantages of having organization is that you can have foundational statements. You can have a mandate where you have people sign where you say, look, if you're with us, you're committing not to engage in terrorism, not to engage in violence. And Gary Yourofsky is not the only guy who is pro-violence, you know. I meet people like that, and I can understand why emotionally they want to believe that. But to me, that's also important, is enforcing minimum standards. So, like, we're not going to engage in terrorism. We're not going to use very kinds of violence. And now this controversy shows we're not going to denounce people as being a pedophile on the internet. I mean, whoever thought it would come to this, that we'd have to say to vegans, look, we need to sit down and sign an agreement. What are the rules of the game? Because the game has gotten so out of control that someone who makes highly intellectual videos on the internet, you know, I have a couple about diet, talking about the fact that I don't believe garlic is a neurotoxin. You know, I don't believe some of the students, but the vast majority of my videos are about politics and democracy, as you guys have been saying. And you respond to that by, you know, calling me fat, threatening to beat me up, and denouncing me as a pedophile. So, you know, the rules to the game, once you have that kind of organization, hopefully also you raise the level of the discourse, and then finally we get respected by the public. Because, guys, think about your own grandparents. I don't know anything about your grandparents. But if your grandmother or grandfather were watching this shit between me and Durian Rider, what would they think about veganism? You know, I talked to some meat eaters from my school, other students at my school. They're just normal people who eat meat. And, you know, if you tell them what just happened in Chiang Mai, that a couple of diet gurus who make their money selling a weight loss book threatened to kidnap someone, beat him up, take him to the police over the... What do they think about veganism as a social movement, as a political movement, or as anything else? This is really low. This really discredits us. So yeah, I mean, I know we've been talking about the positive end of the spectrum, but that's also a negative end of the spectrum that this controversy has made people aware of. We've got to handle. We've got to be better than this, individually and collectively.
I feel like we need a code of ethics, maybe. An ethics that we all follow. Right. And if you don't follow it, then you are not a part of the...
I'll mention this quick because you guys are Canadian, and other people will probably understand. You know, in Canada, the Liberal Party... I'm not a member of the Liberal Party, I don't support them. But the Liberal Party, their constitution, is almost entirely negative statements. It never says what the meaning of the word liberal is. It never tells you positively what they're going to try to achieve. It just tells you what they don't do and who is not allowed to be a member. And one of the examples of this that's significant, I forget when, in some year, I think in the early 1990s, but in some year they added to their constitution They said we gays. Now that may sound like a joke. You say, oh, well, big deal. So what? No, in politics that really matters. So it means, look, if you're a conservative Christian campaigning against gays in Canada, you cannot be a member of the Liberal Party. You'll be kicked out of the party. You won't be allowed to attend the conference. You won't be able to present your opinion at the plenum. So I mean, I know, like, it's easy to be cynical about politics and say, oh, the Liberal Party is just a joke. Believe me, I mean, the Liberal Party is very corrupt. I despise the Liberal Party candidate in many ways, but nevertheless, in terms of the structure, it's not really a code of ethics. It's a mandate or a constitution, because you're not going to punish the people. You say, oh, okay, you're homophobic because you're a conservative Christian preacher. Okay, you can't be a member of the party. Bye. Join another party. Start your own party. Sorry, that's the limit. So there are questions of hard limits with political organization, and for me, as I say with veganism, one of the obvious ones is the use of violence or terrorism, where you say, look, if you're going to join our group, you have to be committed to using democratic means, given that you live in a democracy. And again, I am obviously addressing this to people who live in democracy. I have fans from all over the world. I have fans from North Africa. I have fans from Muslim-majority nations of the Middle East who write to me and who are on Patreon making comments. There are people trying to support veganism in totally different political and social contexts. I do sympathize. But if you're living in a democratic capitalist society, then, this is the stuff we need to take seriously. North Korea can have its own vegan foundation. I'm not speaking on that. How to promote veganism in North Korea is another question.
we'll leave that one aside.
So, yeah.
Great talking to you guys. Do you want to wrap it up now? I mean, we've covered...
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. I think that we can definitely agree on one thing, is that we need to be ethical, transparency, and have the responsibility to do the right thing and leave ego aside out of this, because going veganism was for I would like to think people went veganism for the right reasons, and we need to keep that integrity the whole way through, no matter what.
Yep. I mean, look, it's a damn shame. There's a saying from the history of Europe: the corruption of the best is the worst. Veganism is such a simple, wonderful, positive idea, but what we've seen in Chiang Mai shows just how wrong it can go, just how terrible it can be. And like I've said 100 times, evil isn't what happens when evil people do evil things. It's when good people stand by and do nothing. And I thank you guys. You were good people who didn't do nothing. You didn't have to. You didn't know me. You didn't even talk to me to get my side of the story or something to check or whatever. You stood up. You stood up and did the right thing because it was the right thing to do. And I wish that was common in veganism, but it's goddamn rare. And that should give us all hope for the future, even that one video you guys made. Great talking to you guys.
Trends are set every single day. Thank you so much, Isel. We'll talk to you guys
Bye-bye.
today.
Stay safe, stay healthy, and
And
have a great night, man.
It's free specials for life.